Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today the Stanley Cup is all played out. The Colorado Avalanche are the Stanley Cup winners, which means we got to catch up on all of the news that we've missed throughout the playoffs. So, once again, thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. If you're here on YouTube and you're not currently subscribed to us, subscribe down below. Hit subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment with what you think some of the best moves so far throughout the playoffs has been, because we've got a lot to talk about, especially with the coaching moves that have currently gone on as well. Talk about it in the comment section below. Drop a like while you're there. Hit the bell notifications. That way you know when we go live, because we have got quite the off season coming up. It's going to be busy. There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking, and that's going to be the theme of today, moving and shaking. You can also check out all of our content on our website down below, idsports.com. You can check out our NHL, NFL, MLS, NCAA football, NBA, and wrestling content there as well. While you're there, hit up our shop. Get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And if you're on Twitter and you don't currently follow us, make sure you follow us down below at I80_SportsNHL. And if you do currently follow us, thank you guys so much, because we greatly value all of your support. And if you're currently subscribed to us, thank you so much, because we can't do this without you guys. But time to start the off season in the NHL. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well, and here we are. It is the off season. Congratulations to the Colorado Avalanche on winning the Stanley Cup. They were my pick early in the year. They were my pick beginning of the playoffs. They were my pick for the finals, and they were my pick in basically every round they played in that we reviewed and previewed. I don't know why a lot of people wrote them off. I really thought that this was going to be the year they were going to take it, and they went and took it. So congrats to them, and I got a feeling this is not the last you're going to be seeing of them. There's already maniacs out there saying this is a one-and-done team. I don't know how you see this being a one-and-done team. This team's going to be back. They're going to win 2 or 3, maybe more than that. Who knows?
This team could win quite a bit. I mean, then again, Tom, if it were you, though, if it's the New York Rangers beating the Colorado Avalanche, I think that's, a win in your book. But
it would have been it would have been a win in my book. But if it was the Rangers versus Seattle for the finals, I was not expecting a win. There's a lot of people out there saying, well, Igor would have had his moment there and turned them away, and their goaltending's no good. Yeah, but everywhere else they were better. So,
and that's the key. Yeah, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. So for the Colorado Avalanche, congratulations on your Stanley Cup win. Much deserved for this team. This was definitely the best team of the entire year by far in a lot of cases. And let me also just run down while we're at it, the award winners from this past year as well in the NHL. I'll go, in order of presentation. So the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, given to a leader in the community amongst NHL players, given to PK Subban of the New Jersey Devils, possibly former New Jersey Devil at this point. We all just have to see how the offseason shakes out. The Lady Byng Memorial Trophy, given to a gentleman on the ice who does not take a lot of penalties and also plays at a high caliber. Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets winning that one. The Frank J. Selk Trophy, which might as well just be renamed the Patrice Bergeron Memorial Trophy at this point, because Patrice Bergeron has won the trophy again, and we'll see if he's a Boston Bruin next year. The Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award, given to a very noble human being, Noel Acton. If you are curious, look up his story. He has really done quite a service in the southern region, trying to make hockey more available to the urban areas of America. So big win there. The Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy, given to a player who has overcome adversity, and adversity is certainly the first thing I think of when I think of Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens this year. So well-deserved there. The Jack Adams Award Trophy, given to the top coach of the NHL season, Daryl Sutter of the Calgary Flames, winning that one. I think it's deserved. I think that was a good win there. Well given out there by the NHL. The Mark Messier NHL Leadership Award Trophy, a rather new trophy here. Given to Anze Kopitar of the LA Kings, well-deserved there as well. The E.J. McGuire Award of Excellence given to Lane Hudson of USA Hockey as well. The Ted Lindsay Trophy, which is the MVP trophy as deemed by the players, given to Austin Matthews, and that's not the last that you're going to hear of that name here for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Calder Trophy given to the top rookie of the season, Detroit Red Wings' own Moritz Seider winning that one. The Norris Trophy given to the top defenseman of the year, Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche, taking away that trophy, but then also coming home with the Conn Smythe Trophy, the MVP of the playoffs. And the Vezina Trophy, Tom's going to love this one, given to the top goaltender of the year, Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers winning that trophy. And finally, the Hart Memorial Trophy given to the MVP as voted on by the Writing Association, Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs winning that trophy as well. And as Keenan Thompson said it best during awards season, it is a good thing seeing, Toronto finally win something in June. So congratulations to all the people that I just mentioned there. From I-80 Sports to you guys, congratulations. Well-deserved all around. But with that being said, let's finally, for the first time since the playoffs started, hit up our traffic report and finally catch up on the news that was during the NHL playoffs. Here's the news.
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
News of the week, more like news of the past few weeks, because we've got quite a bit to catch up on here. So if some of this news seems old, it's because I literally told all of our listeners a few weeks ago, yes, we're well aware of all the news that have been going on. We just wanted to wait until this point to actually showcase that and actually kind of catch up and give our thoughts on it. So I'm going to dump a little bit of news here, and then we're going to talk about some of the bigger pieces of news through this, and also the most recent news, because that's going to take a little bit of unpacking as well. So I'm going to go in chronological order, because I was really kind of trying to keep this in chronological order. First and foremost, the Toronto Maple Leafs have reached an extension with defenseman Mark Giordano on a 1-year extension. So that's a big win for the Maple Leafs, being able to extend Mark Giordano on a friendly contract, because this is a team that desperately needed defense this year and will still need it next year. The Maple Leafs also reaching an extension on Timothy Liljegren as well. That's another thing to mention there. So 2 defensemen reaching extensions for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if it's any consolation, Timothy Liljegren is going to be making more money than Mark Giordano next year. So that's a big win for Toronto Maple Leafs already in this offseason. Next, making quite a large sum of money, the Pittsburgh Penguins reaching a long-term extension with Brian Rust, and much deserved for Brian Rust. He was very productive this year on the top line for the Pittsburgh Penguins this year, and is going to be a building block going forward. Next, we have a goaltender coming off the market preemptively in free agency. Joonas Korpisalo has signed a 1-year extension with the Columbus Blue Jackets to stay there for at least one more season. So he's going to be a name to monitor as we come up to the trade deadline next year to see if maybe he goes somewhere else. More on that a different time. We had some scary news here. Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs was a victim of a carjacking in Toronto, and the community did quite a bit to reach out and give their thoughts, and also be able to contribute in his time of loss as well. But all I could think of with this is, man, Toronto just keeps on losing. My God, first you lose in the playoffs, then Mitch Marner is a victim of a carjacking. I mean, what's next? You lose Jack Campbell in free agency, like that's gonna happen. But even still, hopefully Mitch Marner is, okay and not, doesn't have any kind of trauma from the carjacking itself. Our thoughts do extend out to Mitch Marner during that difficult time. Hopefully all is well now. We had some injuries throughout the playoffs that we need to talk about also, and this is probably one that we're going to expand on a little bit more here, Tom. So the Boston Bruins suffered quite a number of injuries here. Charlie McAvoy is going to be out 6 months with shoulder surgery. Mike Riley is out 4 to 5 months, as well as Matt Grzelcyk. I can't remember what the injuries are for both of them, but still extended time. They should be ready by the beginning of the opening of the NHL season this upcoming season, but we'll have to see. The big concern here is Brad Marchand. out 5 to 6 months with hip surgery. But here's the thing with his hip surgery. He's having hip resurfacing done, and players don't come back from that very, very easily. So he's going to be a player that I'm going to be really watching when he comes back from that hip surgery. I also don't know if it's really going to be 5 to 6 months that he's out. It could be a little bit longer. So we'll just have to monitor that and see. And we'll come back to the whole hip resurfacing thing in a little bit. There's another player also getting hip resurfacing done as well. Leon Draisaitl played the entire playoffs with Edmonton with a sprained ankle. Darnell Nurse played with an even more significant injury. Actually, Tom, while I'm actually expanding on this, can you actually look up what Darnell Nurse's injury was throughout the playoffs?
Sure can. Give me 1 second, because
Cool.
I know. Hold on. Nurse.
While you're looking that up, the other player that's getting hip resurfacing done and will be out indefinitely is
Speaking of hips, torn hip flexor.
For who?
Darnell Nurse.
Yeah, he played the entire playoffs with a torn hip flexor. Like, he played that entire round, like 24 minutes a night with a torn hip flexor. Holy moly. Nuts in my mind. That NHL players are built different. Flat out. Washington forward Nicholas Backstrom, as I was talking about before, he's going to be out indefinitely with hip resurfacing, and it is significantly different with his hip resurfacing versus Brad Marchand's hip resurfacing because of the age gap. And Nicholas Backstrom being 35, or is it 35 or 36? I
think he's 35, but what I was going to say with that hip resurfacing is two players that had it done in the past. It was Ed Jovanovski and Ryan Kessler, and both of their careers were never really the same afterwards.
They were never the same afterwards.
Yeah.
Ryan Kessler especially. With Brad Marchand, it seems to be less invasive on his hip resurfacing, but here's the problem with the hip resurfacing. I mean, I know because I have people in my family who have had a procedure like this done. This is a procedure that needs to be done, again and again and again. So he's getting it done for the first time now. What's going to happen 3 years from now? What's going to happen 4 years from now? This is going to heavily affect his market when he does eventually become a free agent way down the line. Another injury that actually came up the most recently, Florida forward Anthony Duclair is going to be out indefinitely with an Achilles injury, and it's not speculated exactly what it is right now. There's the concern that it could be a torn Achilles. There is a silver lining for Florida here, though, which, as sick as it sounds, but because you don't want to lose Anthony Duclair, nor do you want a player to be injured like this at all. With him entering LTIR, long-term injury reserve, the Florida Panthers are saving quite a bit of cap space. So now they actually have a little bit of mobility coming into this offseason that they didn't have initially. So this is going to make their offseason very, very interesting with where they go from here. Maybe they have the money to re-sign Claude Giroux if they want to take a one-year flyer on him, if they want to actually, if he wants to return to Florida and maybe see if he can get a cup there, it could be possible. I think Florida is, as I'm going to describe later, a little bit better post-playoffs right now. So that's something that I'm going to expand on a little bit later. Of these injuries that I've mentioned right now here, Tom, which one is probably the biggest blow for their team?
I'm going to say Charlie McAvoy up in Boston. I think Charlie McAvoy, Matt Brislick, Brad Marchand, all those injuries to Boston, it's going to deal them a huge blow. Now, I know we don't know what's happening with Bergeron. He may come back. Signs are pointing to him coming back. It was reported last week he was coming back, but they never said what for and what the contract would be. And if I'm the Bruins, if I'm going to have all these guys out this year, do I maybe just say screw it? Do I want to tank for the year and have myself a chance at Connor Bedard in the draft and then come back even harder next year? Montreal will have Shane Wright. It would really piss a bunch of Montreal fans off. No offense, guys. Sorry, but it would be interesting if they draft Shane Wright and then Boston comes back with Connor Bedard. Although now we don't really know if Shane Wright's even going to be the consensus #1 overall anymore after reports that have come out from Bob McKenzie and the like over the last few days. Now nobody knows where Shane Wright might go. Nobody knows who Montreal is going to take. But if I were Boston, I would think about it. What I would do is, and you remember what the Devils did the one year when Parise was out most of the year, try to get these guys back, maybe get them back into a game or two and then shut them down just so you can say you played them. And then maybe try for that number 1 overall. And then the next year you come back and you have Charlie. Well, you'll definitely have McAvoy and Grzelcyk back. Marchand, you don't know. And even if you get him back, will he even be the same? But losing Brad Marchand to hip resurfacing and coming back out with Connor Bedard might not be the worst thing for these Bruins at this point in time.
It might not be. To me, in my mind, one big blow from a leadership standpoint is Nicholas Backstrom for the Washington Capitals. I think not a lot of people have realized just how much of a playmaker he has been for over a decade for the Washington Capitals, especially to a player like Alexander Ovechkin, just setting the table day in and day out for Alexander Ovechkin. Now, granted, Ovechkin has plenty of people who can set him up, plenty of people. And Backstrom certainly isn't a spring chicken anymore. But Nicholas Backstrom, when I think of the Washington Capitals over the past 20 years, he is a player that instantly comes into my mind as a, heart and soul type of piece, like one of the building blocks of this franchise of the past 20 years. So I think from that standpoint, it's a huge blow to the Washington Capitals. It's a huge blow to the fan base. He doesn't want to go out this way. This is not the way he wants to retire. He wants to go out on his own terms. I would love to see him be able to go out on his own terms and be able to ride off into the sunset proper. But a hip resurfacing at his age could very well mean the end. And if that's the case, that sucks. And that would really be awful for the Washington Capitals.
I mean, I know it's a huge blow to the Caps, but the thing with the Caps is, I think we might have seen the last of the of that core this past playoffs. I don't know if you're going to see them again in the playoffs for a while, if ever again, with these guys.
And that's true too. I mean, with the rise of the different teams in the Metropolitan Division, I mean, you've got other teams right now that are going to be improving around them this offseason. And it's known that there are going to be a few teams that are going to improve. The Devils are going to improve this offseason and could overtake the Washington Capitals over the next year or two. New York is going to keep improving and expand on their success from this past year. Carolina is only getting better as well. They've also still got a young core in place that is getting better as well. Philadelphia, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. Philadelphia hiring John Tortorella is, I think a decent thing for the Philadelphia Flyers in the immediate to be more competitive. So you're going to see some teams that are going to be jockeying for position, and the Capitals could start falling backwards and backwards and backwards until the point where they might need to make a fire sale. And this could be the catalyst to that. A injury to Nicholas Backstrom could prove to be the catalyst to that. But we'll just have to see how these players end up recovering from this injury as we keep going through the offseason. We had one trade that has gone down, and it was a doozy of a trade, and it actually happened as early as today. And I did not see this player going to this place, to be honest. So the Minnesota Wild have traded the rights to Kevin Fiala, and I say traded the rights because he has to be re-signed first before he is officially a member. But his rights have been traded to the Los Angeles Kings for a first-round pick this year, which is the number 19 overall pick, and the rights to University of Minnesota captain Brock Faber. It's looking like LA is going to lock in a deal with him, and it's looking like, according to Elliot Friedman, it's looking like he is going to be extended at a rate of $7.9 million per year. So quick reactions. How do you like this for Minnesota? How do you like this for LA? Tom, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's great for LA. You're adding an elite player into a team that still has a good Anze Kopitar, a good Drew Doughty, and, a good Philip Deneau, and a team that, surprised a lot of people this year. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, and they really pushed Edmonton hard in that first round. This improves LA immensely in a Pacific Division that's not necessarily as weak as it was, because I think one team over there is going to get a little stronger this year. I mean, look at the Pacific this year. You had Calgary and Edmonton, obviously, and even they were playing Jekyll and Hyde for a while. You had LA who surprised them. LA just got a lot better. With Vegas, I think Vegas was just a dumpster fire this year, but I don't think it's good. They're going to stay that way. I think you're going to see Vegas back in the playoffs next year as well. So, LA is doing this to keep up. And there's another team up there in the Pacific Northwest who I'm going to talk about a little later, who I really think is going to improve this year as well coming up. So they're doing it to keep pace with the rest of the division. On the flip side, Fiala was arguably Minnesota's second best player. And that is what you call a cap casualty. I guess it just got to a point where he said he was only going to take a certain number and he wasn't going to go any lower. And I guess it just got to a point with Bill Guerin and co. that they would rather build around Kaprizov than him, which is understandable. I think Kaprizov's a little bit of a better player. But it hurts Minnesota, yes, but it doesn't hurt them as much as I thought it would. Outside of Colorado, who were obviously the defending champions, the Central's kind of weak. St. Louis is night and day. St. Louis is still a good team, but not an elite team. I still don't think when you look up and down that Central division, maybe Dallas has resurgence this year, but I don't think it hurts Minnesota. It hurts Minnesota, but I don't think it hurts them as much just because they're in a weaker division, and I think they could still probably make the playoffs without Fiala's services. But does it make them a better team? Absolutely not.
I like this for both teams, to be honest. I think LA gets an elite forward, as you were describing before, and you can plug and play Fiala on the first line, second line. Hell, even if you really even want to plug him on the third line with Quentin Byfield, you could even do that too, unless Byfield is ready to overtake Deneau on the second line come the middle of the season. I don't know if I see that. I see Deneau as the number 2 center, though, on this team. But Fiala is going into a situation in LA where this is a team that's going to keep going to the playoffs over these next few years, and he's going to a playoff contender. And for Minnesota, they got exactly what they asked for. They wanted a first-round pick this year, which they got, and they got a high-level prospect, and they got that in Brock Faber. Beyond that, you had other teams that were speculated to be in on Kevin Fiala. Those two teams that were heavily speculated were the New Jersey Devils and the Ottawa Senators. And based on the asking price for Kevin Fiala, it didn't make sense for either team. Here's why. New Jersey Devils, they have the number 2 overall pick. You're not giving that up for Kevin Fiala. I'm sorry. He's not worth the number 2 overall pick. In Ottawa's case, they also have a top 10 pick. That's not worth Kevin Fiala. They both, meaning the New Jersey Devils and the Ottawa Senators, have the prospect power to get a deal like that done. But at the end of the day, Bill Guerin was very dead set on, I want a first-round pick this year in this draft. Neither team could get that done. LA swoops in. They get it done because they were willing to part with the number 19 overall pick to get Kevin Fiala. So this is a great trade for both teams. Minnesota keeps loading up, and they're going to, keep getting better and younger over these next few years. And Bill Guerin is slowly but surely getting this team out of cap hell. And I think they avoid a cap casualty in Kevin Fiala. Not that he would necessarily be a cap casualty for them, but this works out for both teams because both teams can get this deal done. I'm going to be excited to watch Kevin Fiala in LA. And in Minnesota's case, I'm going to be excited to see them keep getting younger and just keep watching Kirill the Thrill be amazing. All right. We have more news to talk about, but we're going to make this into our own segment. So that being said, it's time to pump the brakes.
Not so fast. It's time to pump the brakes.
So we got to talk about the coaching carousel. And though we're not fully done with who has moved from place to place, and there are still vacancies across the NHL, there's been quite a bit of movement so far in the NHL in terms of head coaching positions. So I'm just going to read down the list exactly what has happened so far this season, and we're just going to talk about what were some of the best moves, what were some of the worst moves. So first and foremost, the Vegas Golden Knights fired Pete DeBoer, and Pete DeBoer was then hired by the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars terminated Rick Bowness after the conclusion of their playoff run after 7 games for them. So Stars end up with a brand new coach. So what happened with Vegas? Well, let's turn to Boston for that one. The Boston Bruins fired, surprisingly, in my mind, this came out of left field for me. The Boston Bruins fired Bruce Cassidy And then in another left turn, Bruce Cassidy was then hired by the Vegas Golden Knights. Crazy. I did not see that one coming. Next, the New York Islanders fired Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz, who will likely take the year off to focus on family after rejecting a deal that would have made him the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. And then the Islanders turned to Lane Lambert for the head coaching vacancy, promoting him within the organization. So, big move right there. Next, we had a couple people who are going to be staying put with where they are. Bruce Boudreau is getting a second year in Vancouver. Much deserved there. I think that is a great move for Vancouver. Edmonton is removing the interim tag from Jay Woodcroft. Again, I think that's a solid move for Edmonton. I think it kind of keeps the peace in Edmonton. I'm certain that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl had something to do with that, to be honest, but whatever. Chicago has decided to move on from their interim head coach and have hired Luke Richardson to be their head coach. And as I mentioned before, the Philadelphia Flyers moved on from Mike Yeo towards the end of the regular season, but then they surprisingly hired ESPN analyst and I guess former head coach John Tortorella. And I'll expand on that one a little bit later. And then probably one of the most surprising move in my mind, the Florida Panthers have hired former Winnipeg head coach Paul Maurice. So, yeah, a lot of moving and shaking. You still have Boston with a vacancy right now.
We have a favor for that one, though.
Yeah, so I think Detroit also currently has a vacancy, and Winnipeg currently has a vacancy, unless they want to remove the interim tag from their coach from this past year. But let's just talk about this. So what I want to talk a little bit is which of these moves will make the biggest impact on their franchise, positively and negatively. So Tom, I'm going to task you here with giving me two names here. Give me one in the positive. Give me one in the negative.
All right, well, positive, I'm going to go with Bruce Boudreau up in Vancouver. You saw already last year, the writing was on the wall when he took over. They had themselves a nice finish to the season. And I had said earlier on our earlier shows that it was just kind of too little too late with hiring Boudreau up there. I think Boudreau and the Canucks are going to improve immensely this year, immensely in the Pacific Division. There'll be times where they're going to be pushing for first or second in that division. I don't think there's a clear number one team coming in the Pacific this year between Edmonton, Calgary, LA, and Vancouver, and Vegas. I don't think there's a clear-cut number one at this point. I really don't. So I could see Vancouver. I don't know if they'll win the division, but I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to make a bold prediction here. Vancouver Canucks are going to make the playoffs next year with Bruce Boudreau behind the bench. You saw it last year. You saw how well they responded to him and how well they played down the line. And this is a team I have been saying year after year after year just got hit with every piece of bad luck possible over the last two. I think it's really time for the Canucks to return, and I think they're going to do it this year with Boudreau behind the bench. That team has too much talent and too many good players to be missing the playoffs every year. And I think Boudreau is maybe the guy for them to take them to the next level. Will he win a cup over there? I don't know. I'm not going to say he'll win a cup, but I'll say I think they will make the playoffs next season with Bruce Boudreau behind the bench. Now, on the negative side, Florida is acting like Vegas with this hire. They won the President's Trophy with Brunette behind the bench. Granted, they got swept by Tampa, but you got swept by the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. You beat Washington. You won a playoff series first time since 1996. Highest scoring team in the league, best record in the league, and you tell a guy to go take a hike. The players obviously liked Brunette. They responded under him. They played well under him. There were no problems over there. I don't know how they're going to respond under Maurice. I don't know what kind of coach Paul Maurice is going to be with these guys. Is he going to make an offensive team play defensive hockey? Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But if I were Florida, I would have given Brunette one more year. I don't know if I like this hire too much of Paul Maurice. Granted, Maurice is a good coach. Don't get me wrong. Guy's never won a cup, though. He went to the finals once with Carolina when they lost to Detroit in 0-2. He's been to the playoffs. But Paul Maurice walking in doesn't come walking in like, say, a Barry Trotz or even maybe a Gerard Gallant for that matter, who has just won everywhere he's went, or even Sheldon Keefe up in Toronto, who had won championships at every level he coached. Paul Maurice is kind of just a marginal coach, and he was recycled twice by Carolina. I don't know if this is a good deal for Florida. I don't know if this is a good hire. I really think they should have given Brunette one more year to figure it out. I really do. And if they would have, taken a step back during the season or gotten knocked out in the first round of the playoffs next year, then I would have addressed it. But I'll tell you what, when I heard about them hiring Maurice, I was like, Paul Maurice, I says, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is such a good idea. So those are my two.
So I'm actually going to play devil's advocate here on Florida's side. I think Paul Maurice going to Florida is actually a big win for Florida. And my standpoint is this. Coming into the season, you had Joel Quenneville as your head coach, and we all know how that ended. The intention was to have an experienced head coach for this team. And Brunette succeeded, despite that. I think it was Florida's intention to have somebody seasoned and experienced behind that bench. And you get that in Paul Maurice. You get a experienced playoff leader in Paul Maurice. Do you get Stanley Cup wins? No, you don't get that from Paul Maurice. Meaning, like, has he won it before? No. But that being said, you still have a head coach who is proven in the playoffs and has performed well, getting the most out of his players and his team. And I think ultimately that's what Florida was looking for. And then I'm going to also kind of share that one and say, surprisingly, I don't know if I hate Philadelphia hiring John Tortorella, because this is a team that needs their ass kicked very, very badly. This is a team that needs just a swift kick in the ass very, very badly. This is a team with familiarity for John Tortorella. You have Cam Atkinson there. Cam Atkinson, who played very, very well under John Tortorella. You have like-minded individuals there that are going to resonate with his style of coaching as well. Sean Couturier is going to resonate with his style of coaching, I think, very, 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 very well. Ivan Provorov, I think, is going to thrive under John Tortorella if he's not dealt beforehand. And who knows? You could have Carter Hart bounce back big time under John Tortorella. It's going to be left to be seen, but this is a team that needed an abrasive coach because the nice approach was not working. So I think John Tortorella is going to be an interesting choice there for Philadelphia. It's high risk, high reward. It's either going to really, really work out or it's going to crash and burn spectacularly. And I'm going to be watching to see which one happens first. But on the flip side, the one negative that I just do not get, will not get, I don't understand what Lou Lamoriello with the New York Islanders was thinking with firing Barry Trotz. Yes, I get it. You need a new voice in the room, but you have one of the best coaches in the entire league. And this is a team that is a year removed from a deep playoff run. And who's to say that they can't do that again? Hiring Lane Lambert is admitting defeat and admitting that, okay, we're going to be near the bottom of the league. We're going to be near the bottom of the Metropolitan Division for the foreseeable future. Let's retool. Let's, cut our losses and let's just brace for impact. And with that, I say a sincere apology to Matt Barzal because he does not deserve that, because he's one of the best players in the NHL, and he's not going to get to show that on a team like the New York Islanders.
There's another number one center who, when he goes UFA, will leave them, and all their fans will get upset.
Yep, just like John Tavares.
Like Tavares, even though they never tried to build a team around Tavares to do anything.
Yeah. But that being said, we're also going to probably be talking about the other vacancies that finally get filled as the summer goes on. So stick around with us for that. But I think it's time to slowly wrap things up here. Let's talk our question of the day. The question of the day is just simple for today. We wanted just a nice, fun question for today. What are you looking forward to most this offseason, this summertime? Tom, I have a feeling I know what your answer is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I think you're all going to read my mind here.
Can I?
Go for it.
World Juniors.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? I had been looking it up. I mean, I wasn't obsessing over it by any means, but I had just been, looking it up here and there. And I just looked it up before we started today. And they have the schedules up for the games in August now. So the U.S. is playing Germany. August 9th will be at 10 o'clock our time, 8 o'clock Edmonton time. So I'm looking forward to it. World Juniors in August to make up for the idiotic setup they put during a pandemic by putting players in a hotel where people were having parties and there were bars and pubs. So obviously I hope things will be relaxed this time. I think they will be. Players I hope will have a little more freedom when they're up there to just go out and walk around and go work out and the like. So I'm looking forward to it. I guess the only thing is it may be watered down depending on what players will be allowed to go and what players won't be. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to it every year. And I'm going to watch it this summer just like I watch it every year right around the holidays.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the World Junior Tournament is going to be a ton of fun to watch this year. It's going to be a shame that certain players aren't going to benefit like they should have, like Shane Wright. And that's honestly the reason why he might not go first overall right now. I think that's where a lot of that stems from, which, blatant advertising right now. Catch us next week because we are going to preview the NHL draft next week, as well as give you our review of the first round next week as well at the end of next week. So you definitely don't want to miss that. But for me, speaking of the draft, I'm hyped for the draft next week and I'm hyped for free agency to start. I'm really excited to see what some teams do this offseason, including my own New Jersey Devils. So we're just going to have to see what happens. But until then, we still have to revel in the fact that the Colorado Avalanche are Stanley Cup champions and have already dented the damn trophy. But thanks, Nick Aube-Cobell. But anyway, it's time to get away from here for right now. It's time to move on. We got to start thinking about the draft, so we hope that you guys join us for that. And the only way you can join us is on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe down below. Hit the bell notifications so that way you know when we post our preview of the NHL draft. In case you want to try to, maybe bet a little bit on the NHL draft, maybe bet on the order. We're going to give you our top 10 next week with who we think is going where, maybe even some trades that could happen as well. We're going to give you all the previews to that. But you got to join the conversation down below based on this episode. What are your thoughts of some of the news that we talked about today? Hit us up in the comments. Drop a like if you like our content as well. And you can also find our content on i80sports.com. You can find the rest of our sports coverage there as well and hit up our shop. Get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And if you're on Twitter and you don't currently follow us, make sure you follow us down below at i80_sportsNHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. And I'm going to certainly be more active on Twitter this summer as we get more and more breaking news from around free agency. And I'm definitely going to be putting up some polls to see what your guys' thoughts are on how teams have improved this offseason. So you don't want to miss that as well. If you're not on Twitter, get an account. Make sure you follow us down below. But it's time to start the offseason. It's time to start thinking of the draft, then about free agency, and then hopefully everybody's teams have improved by then. But until then, I'm Brian. He's Tom. This has been yet another episode of NHL on i80 Sports.